Most people think freedom means doing whatever they want, but that's not freedom. That's slavery to impulse. True freedom is the power to choose not to obey every desire that crosses your mind, every addiction, every distraction, every emotional outburst. It all begins with surrendering to a fleeting urge. And the tragedy is that the modern world is built to feed those urges. Your attention is auctioned. Your emotions are engineered. The apps on your phone, the food you eat, the content you consume. It's all designed to make you choose what feels good now instead of what builds you forever. Self-control, then, becomes an act of rebellion, a refusal to be predictable, a decision to live with intention in a world built to hijack it. We don't teach self-control anymore. We teach achievement, ambition, performance, but not patience. We glorify speed, not stability. But every great life, every great empire, every great soul was built on restraint. The warrior who knows when not to strike, the artist who knows when to pause, the leader who knows when silence speaks louder than action. Self-control is the root of all discipline. Without it, discipline becomes torture. With it, discipline becomes strength. Daniel was 29 when his life began to fracture. On paper, everything looked perfect. Good job, decent apartment, friends, the usual rhythm of city life. But under the surface, he was unraveling. He had a quiet addiction, not to alcohol, not to drugs, but to distraction. Every night after work, he'd sink into hours of numbing entertainment, videos, games, endless scrolling. He'd promise himself, tomorrow will be different, but tomorrow always looked like yesterday. He wasn't weak. He wasn't lazy. He was stuck, caught in the invisible web of comfort. One night around 2 a.m., he looked up from his phone and realized he had no memory of what he'd just watched for the past 4 hours. He checked the time, sighed, and whispered to himself, "I'm losing time." That whisper hit him harder than any scream. He remembered being a kid, full of energy, dreams, and drive. He used to wake up excited about life. When did that disappear? When did his willpower fade into white noise? It wasn't a dramatic downfall. It was a slow erosion, the kind that happens quietly, one small compromise at a time. Daniel decided to reclaim his life, one decision at a time. He didn't announce it. He didn't post about it. He just decided that for the next 30 days he would control one thing, his morning. No phone, no distractions. Just wake up, breathe, and write one paragraph about what he wanted his life to stand for. The first 3 days were easy, fueled by motivation. By day 4, the urges began. His hand itched for the phone. His mind rationalized. Just check your messages. The pull was magnetic, and he lost the fight. But that night, instead of giving up, he studied his failure. He realized that self-control wasn't a battle of strength. It was a strategy of awareness. The urge would always come, but the power lay in observing it, not obeying it. So he tried again, and again. By day 10, something changed. The urge came, but he noticed it like a passing cloud, not a command. He sat with it, breathed through it, and watched it fade. That small victory felt bigger than any accomplishment he'd achieved in years. It wasn't about the phone, it was about freedom. As weeks passed, Daniel's mornings became sacred. He began to notice the silence between thoughts. He started reading again, walking more, thinking deeply. The fog in his mind began to clear. He learned something profound. Self-control isn't about denying yourself pleasure, it's about redefining it. Pleasure from mastery, pleasure from progress, pleasure from living in alignment with your higher self instead of your lower impulses. He realized that the things that used to comfort him, distractions, dopamine hits, cheap excitement, weren't comfort at all. They were cages dressed as comfort, and the key was always in his hand. Self-control is not a one-time act. It's a daily decision, sometimes hourly. It's about choosing long-term peace over short-term pleasure, awareness over reaction, growth over gratification. It's not glamorous. It's not instant, but it's the foundation of everything that lasts. But when it comes to self-control, most people are waging war blindfolded. They're fighting forces they don't understand, and losing not because they're weak, but because they've never seen the battlefield. That battlefield is your brain, and the enemy isn't out there. It's the primitive part of you that evolved to chase comfort and avoid pain. A system built for survival, not for success. Inside you, there are two minds that never stop negotiating. The first is the emotional mind. Ancient, instinctive, fast. It's the one that screams, eat now, scroll now, escape now. And it's obsessed with immediate gratification. The second is the rational mind. Calm, strategic, forward-thinking. It lives in your prefrontal cortex, and it whispers, wait, think, choose. These two minds are constantly at war, and self-control is the art of making peace between them. The emotional mind is not evil. It's primal. It wants to protect you from discomfort because discomfort used to mean danger. Hunger, fear, uncertainty. In ancient times, those could kill you. But in the modern world, avoiding discomfort kills your potential instead. The brain hasn't evolved fast enough to know the difference. It still flinches from stress like it's running from predators. That's why you crave distraction when you're anxious. That's why you reach for your phone when silence feels heavy. That's why you avoid hard conversations, hard work, hard truths. Your brain is not trying to sabotage you. It's trying to save you. But what once saved you now keeps you small. Daniel learned this the hard way. After weeks of disciplined mornings, he began to notice something. The world was constantly trying to reclaim his attention. Every notification, every ad, every app was whispering, "Come back. You're missing out." The problem is, the modern world floods your dopamine system with artificial rewards. You don't need to hunt for food or earn victory anymore. You can just click, scroll, or swipe. Your brain releases dopamine not because you achieve something, but because you might. It's the anticipation loop that traps billions of people. Endless stimulation with no real fulfillment. One morning during his daily reflection, Daniel wrote something that became his new mantra. Awareness breaks the cycle. He realized that self-control wasn't about suppressing urges. It was about seeing them clearly before they take over. He started to notice the pattern. Every time he felt the urge to open his phone, eat junk, or avoid work, he would pause, just for 5 seconds, and breathe. That pause was tiny, but it was everything. In those few seconds, he could feel the urge rise and fall like a wave. This was more than willpower. It was awareness in motion, and with each conscious pause, his power grew. Over time, it becomes easier to pause, reflect, and act with intention instead of emotion. That's why meditation, journaling, and delayed gratification practices work. They literally rewire your brain to prefer peace over chaos. But there's another danger, one more subtle than distraction: comfort. Comfort is the silent killer of self-control because it disguises itself as success. When life is too easy, when everything feels fine, the drive to grow fades. Daniel began to notice this too. After months of progress, he slipped, not because of failure, but because of satisfaction. He thought, I'm doing great, I deserve a break. He started sleeping in again, skipping his morning reflections. And within a week, the fog returned. It wasn't catastrophic, just a slow drift back toward mediocrity. That's how regression begins. Not with disaster, but with comfort. He wrote another line in his journal that day. The moment you feel safe in your habits, you're losing them. That realization hit hard. He understood that self-control isn't a finish line. It's a daily practice, a muscle that weakens when left unused. Daniel decided to rebuild his discipline from a deeper place this time, not from guilt, but from gratitude. He no longer hated his impulses. He saw them as teachers. Each craving was a message, a signal that something inside him was seeking balance. When he felt the urge to check his phone, he asked, "What am I trying not to feel right now?" When he wanted to quit, he whispered, "What would my higher self do?" Those questions didn't silence his impulses. They transformed them. One evening, Daniel stood in front of the mirror and looked at himself. Really looked. He saw the lines under his eyes, the tension in his shoulders, the exhaustion that came from years of internal chaos. For the first time, he didn't criticize. He didn't judge. He just stood there and said quietly, I forgive you. It was strange, emotional in a way he didn't expect, because self-control without self-compassion is self-destruction. You can't fight yourself into freedom. You can only lead yourself there, and that's what Daniel began to do. He wasn't chasing perfection anymore. He was pursuing harmony. It was no longer about never falling. It was about falling consciously and getting back up faster, wiser, stronger. Self-control is not a switch you flip. It's a relationship you build. A relationship with your mind, your emotions, your impulses, the unseen forces that shape your every choice. And like any relationship, it requires attention, patience, and forgiveness. When you understand the science of your struggle, you stop blaming yourself and start training yourself. You stop asking, why am I so weak? And start asking, how can I design strength? Because strength is not what you're born with. It's what you build every time you choose awareness over reaction. Growth never announces itself with comfort. It arrives disguised as chaos, and it comes to see if the strength you've been building is real or just rehearsed. Daniel was about to find out. For months, his life had been stabilizing. He'd built rhythm, clarity, peace. His mind felt sharper, his days more deliberate. For the first time in years, he wasn't at war with himself. Then came the call. It was a Tuesday evening. His phone buzzed. It was his sister. Her voice was trembling. Their father had suffered a heart attack. In a single moment, everything Daniel had been training for, awareness, patience, control, dissolved into a blur of adrenaline and panic. When he arrived, time slowed. He saw his father. Tubes, monitors, machines breathing for him. All the lessons about focus, about breath, about composure, they felt irrelevant in that moment. But beneath the shock, a small voice whispered, "Breathe." It was faint, almost invisible, but it was there. The muscle he had been training through months of self-awareness began to engage, even in chaos. He took one deep breath, then another, and slowly the panic became presence. In the following days, Daniel lived in the hospital, sleeping in chairs, eating whatever he could find. His sister was breaking down. His mother was in denial. Every instinct in him wanted to collapse. But self-control, he realized now, wasn't just about saying no to temptation. It was about staying steady in emotional storms. He couldn't control what was happening. He couldn't fix it. But he could control how he responded. He began applying the same principles he used for impulse control to his emotions. When grief rose, he didn't suppress it. He observed it. He let it pass through him instead of consuming him. When exhaustion hit, he breathed through it, one moment at a time. When anger flared, he remembered, emotion is information, not identity. And something powerful began to happen. He became an anchor for his family, calm when they couldn't be. Not because he felt no pain, but because he stopped fighting the pain. Self-control had turned into emotional mastery. One night, though, everything cracked. It was 3 a.m. His father's condition had worsened. Machines beeped endlessly, nurses whispered, and Daniel sat alone in the dim hallway. He felt the weight of everything, the exhaustion, the fear, the helplessness. He wanted to escape, to drown it out, to numb the pain. For the first time in months, he felt the old impulse. Just distract yourself. Watch something. Forget for a while. He pulled out his phone. The glow hit his face. His thumb hovered over the screen. Then he stopped. He stared at the light for a moment, realizing what this was. Not just temptation, but a test. He whispered to himself, "If I run from this moment, I'll run from every hard thing that comes after." He put the phone down, closed his eyes, and sat with the pain. It wasn't pleasant. It wasn't noble. It was raw and brutal. But in that silence, he found something. Not comfort, but clarity. He realized that self-control isn't about staying calm when life is easy. It's about choosing presence when everything in you wants to escape. That night, he didn't conquer his emotions. He witnessed them. And by witnessing them, they lost their power. A week later, his father began to recover. Slowly but surely. Daniel felt something profound. Relief, yes, but also gratitude. Not just for his father's life, but for the storm itself. It had shown him who he truly was when comfort was gone. The storm reveals what your peace is made of. After his father came home, Daniel sat with him on the porch one evening. The sun was setting. His father, still weak but smiling, said, "You've changed, son. You're calmer, stronger." Daniel smiled. "I think I finally learned what control really means." His father nodded slowly, looking out at the horizon. "It's not about control, is it? It's about response." Those words stayed with Daniel. In the months that followed, Daniel's life didn't become perfect. There were still bad days, distractions, temptations. But now he met them differently. He didn't panic. He didn't shame himself. He simply noticed, adjusted, and moved forward. That's the secret no one tells you about self-control. It's not a straight line. It's a dance. Forward, forward again. When life tests you, when everything falls apart, your instinct will be to run, to distract, to escape, to drown the noise. But those moments are invitations. They ask you, can you stay still while the storm rages? Can you breathe when your heart is breaking? Can you choose your response when everything in you wants to react? That is self-control in its highest form. Not denial, not perfection, but presence, the courage to remain awake inside the fire. Most people think discipline is about doing more, but Daniel learned that true discipline is about doing less, but with purpose. He simplified his life, woke up at the same time, ate clean, moved his body, meditated, worked deeply on one project at a time. But growth always brings friction. As Daniel evolved, not everyone around him did. Some friends didn't understand his quiet focus. They missed the old version of him, the one who stayed up late, complained about work, escaped with them into distractions. When he began saying no, they called him distant. When he prioritized silence over parties, they called him cold. And for a moment, he doubted himself. He wondered if he was becoming too rigid, too isolated. But deep down, he knew. He wasn't pulling away from them. He was moving toward himself. Self-control often looks like isolation because clarity separates you from the noise. You stop blending in. You stop pretending. The truth is, the higher your standards, the smaller your circle. But the smaller your circle, the stronger your core. Daniel learned that you can't keep everyone and keep evolving, and that's okay. Years later, Daniel looked back on his journey and saw how far he'd come, not in distance, but in depth. He no longer recognized the man who once sought distraction over purpose. That version of him wasn't weak. He was simply unaware. And awareness, he knew now, is the seed of all transformation. He had learned that the ultimate power isn't to control the world. It's to control your response to it. Because when you master your response, the world can no longer master you. He drew a circle on a piece of paper. Inside he wrote, "My thoughts, my actions, my reactions." Outside he wrote, "Other people, the past, the future." Everything outside this circle will try to control you. But everything inside it, if you master that, the rest loses power. It was so simple, yet it carried the weight of truth most people never live by. The goal of self-control is not perfection, it's awareness. Awareness turns every mistake into a lesson, every trigger into a teacher, every weakness into a doorway. The world will always be loud. It will always try to pull you in 1,000 directions. Faster, louder, easier. But the strongest person in the room is not the one who controls others. It's the one who controls themselves. Not with rigidity, but with grace. Not with suppression, but with understanding. Not with perfection, but with presence. So take a breath, slow down, look within. Because the kingdom you're trying to control outside has always been inside you. That is the power of self-control. That is the quiet revolution. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. See you on our next video.